He returned to work. What he knew without question was that it felt good to be busy toiling in atonement, to direct his feelings outward through his arms and knife, as if draining an abscess. Now and then his eyes crossed Puget Sound on the Olympic range and settled on the peak of the cyclist had told him was Mount Olympus, the home of the Greek gods, Brent mused. Hadn't Hercules likewise performed his labors to cleanse himself of a crime? From Miss Lifton's class in his previous life, the story returned to him while he worked, of the Greek hero slaying his wife and children in a fit of insanity, his asking an oracle how he could atone, her telling him to seek out a certain king and perform for him 12 labors. His task had been just as bizarre as Brent's, and likewise he called for long journeys. Brent worked until late. He cut his hand 3 different times and suspected that part of him wasn't content with the labors he'd done assigned and longed to mete out more punishment. He laid out the whirligig's various parts and set them shining with a thick coat of varnish. Leah's eyes glistened as if she'd awakened. Finally, he put down his tools, built a fire, and warmed another can of soup. He returned to his work early the next morning. Bent over his book like a biblical scholar, mumbling, rereading, receiving sudden insights, he carefully mounted the arms on the figure. The placement was tricky. He tried to figure out why one arm didn't spin and adjusted it endlessly. Then he agonized over the figure's pivot point, marked the spot, drilled the hole, and hoped for the best. He poured some tubing into the hole. He slipped this over a piece of dowel. The figure turned smoothly from side to side. He glued the dowel into a chunk of 2x4 and found it along the shore. He tingled. He realized he was finished. He blew upon it, the arms pinwheeled, seeming to strum the harp strings. He could hardly believe it actually worked. He blew 50 more times for confirmation. He now wondered where to set it up. Was it illegal to mount it on state land? Then again, the park belonged to the public. Better here than in someone's front yard. He'd have to hope the harpist so charmed the rangers that they wouldn't remove it. How to mount it was a further problem. He hadn't brought 10-foot poles in his pack. He paced the site, deliberating. Then he spied a tree limb, roughly horizontal, open to the wind, from which the west and high end enough to keep his work out of reach. He climbed out and nailed down the driftwood mount. Then he returned for the whirligig. Back on the ground, he stared up at it. The harp player was just over a foot tall and seemed much smaller from the distance. Brent awaited a breeze until his neck ached. Then when it came, the figures felt it first. It swung the dowel into a weather haven. The arms lifted, then trembled, then spun. He felt the breeze. The arms gained speed. His smile widened. The phrase, "the breath of life," traveled through his mind. He watched, mesmerized. Then he ran for the camera.